Welcome back to the Money Script Podcast. It's your host, Johannes Harrison. So happy to be with you once again. For those of you that are just binging these shows, yes, I haven't really moved. I went and got some water and, walked around for a little while. And I said, I have another guest coming right up. And so here she is. Now, this one is super special to me because this is the first guest. Let me think about it. Yeah, I think it's true. This is the first guest that I'm actually related to.
Lucky me.
Look at the first cuzzo on the podcast. So you will now be known as the first cousin on the podcast.
Right. And I'm literally your first cousin.
See, look at that. You see how that works? That's amazing. That is amazing. So everyone, please join us in welcoming Natasha Vinson as the guest of our podcast.
Hello, everyone.
We are going to dig in on her amazing life. And let me tell you guys, it is amazing. But first, as always, just want to reintroduce you. If this is your first time listening to the podcast, again, my name is Johannes Harrison. I am a financial advisor. I've been in financial planning for 22 years. Yes, I started when I was young. And my role is to help people make better decisions with their money. I do that by helping them connect their values with their financial goals and their financial behaviors. And getting those to work together, I found helps people, like I said, to make better financial decisions and just to make more knowledgeable decisions. And that's what I've been doing. And that's what I love to help people do. The purpose of this podcast is to give you a little daily dose, or weekly dose. We do this weekly. Give you a weekly dose of some financial literacy, learn about some other people and what they're doing, how they're starting their own businesses, how they're making some of their financial decisions. And again, get you thinking about your money. So I want to start with our current event because I love to start with current events. And this one actually blew me away when I saw it come across the ticker tape. This is in the Wall Street Journal. It says Americans failed to pay a record $688 billion, that's with a B, in taxes in 2021. Yeah, so that means that people had taxes that were due and they failed to pay them to the tune of $688 billion, which is the highest amount ever. Now, I'm sure we have a lot of great reasons. We were, still going through the pandemic and just coming out of that. And a lot of people changed jobs. And I'm sure there's reasons. There's got to be good reasons. But what I want people to understand about the IRS, and I'm not a CPA, I'm just giving you some information that you should keep at the top of the dome. Do not ignore them. If you live in a state where there's state taxes, do not ignore them. The biggest mistake you can make is when they send you those letters, you just put your head in the sand and do nothing, because when you do nothing, that's when it escalates. Okay. In some states like California, which I've been in this situation before, I wake up in the morning, I'm like, hey, who took this money out of my bank account? Who is Franchise Tax Board? That was the people that I owed money to. It's the state of California. And they just came right in my bank account and took it because I ignored them. Okay. If you receive a letter from the IRS, you receive a letter from a state tax board, then the best thing you can do is get some help from a CPA or a, what are they called? A registered, I always forget the name of them, but those other people, I talked about them before. Go look at the podcast with George, enrolled agent. There it is. Shout out to George. He's our resident enrolled agent. Dr. Dandridge, he is now. He's got his PhD. But if you get one of those notices, reach out and get some help, or talk to the person that helped you prepare your tax return, and communicate with that entity, whether it's the IRS or the state. And a lot of times, sometimes it's a mistake. They just overlook something, or maybe you did. Other times it may be something that is defensible, which you can come back to the IRS. I've seen people go and fight against the IRS and win, or fight against the state and win. Or it may be something where, you made a mistake and you owe that money, but in most cases, they will allow you to set up a reasonable payment plan. And you'd rather be in a reasonable payment plan than to keep accruing lots of interest and penalties, or just wake up in one morning and, they've garnished your wages, or they've garnished money that's in your bank account, or worse, they slapped you with liens and levies and you can't move or sell assets, or they report you for backup withholding on your brokerage account. So they're taking money out of your brokerage account every time you trade. It can be a mess, but don't ignore them. Don't ignore them. So with that, let's get to our cousin. How are you, Natasha?
I'm good. How are you? I'm happy it's Friday.
I am happy it's Friday too. Now, listeners, you may be listening to this on Monday. Friday's coming. Okay. It
Yes.
comes every week. It's coming. You're on your way. You're almost there. You're like 20% of the way there.
Right.
So now, Natasha, this is a woman of many, many talents,
Yeah.
wearing many, many hats. I have to say, and I was kind of embarrassed about this. I'd share this with my wife. Natasha invited us to see her on the TED stage. That's right, y'all. TED. We have a TED speaker on the Money Script podcast. She's also the first TED speaker on the podcast.
Look at all
Oh,
these firsts. I'm so
all these
flattered.
firsts.
Yes.
So she gave the most wonderful TED talk that I'd seen in a long time, especially in person. I've seen some good ones, just watching YouTube, but in person to see it and to be in the room was incredible. And I learned a lot about you, Natasha. I didn't know half the stuff you said. Like I kind of knew just because
Yeah.
we're family, so there's gossip.
Yeah.
But then to hear you tell a story, I was like, oh, that makes sense now.
Yeah.
So I really appreciate you sharing your story. Is your TED talk on YouTube yet?
So actually it takes about 6 to 8 weeks, because we just
Okay.
did it in August. They said that we should be getting it like within the next week or two. So it's
Okay.
not
Well,
on there yet, but as soon as it is,
as soon as
I
it is, we'll put a link. There'll be a link in the show notes. So if you don't see it there, just get at us on Twitter. We'll make sure we add it in there. But we're going to make sure that is there. It is an incredible story. And
okay.
you may get into a few pieces at the night. But so she is a TED speaker.
Yes.
She is the host of her own podcast. She is doing a special right now called Red Lipstick Conversations. As you can
Yeah.
see, she's wearing her red
Red
lipstick today.
lipstick.
So I guess this is kind of a red lipstick conversation. Well, I'm not wearing. I
Yeah.
got some chapstick on, but not red lipstick. She is a realtor. She is the founder of Own It, Own You. She's a mom. She's a wife, and she works 9 to 5.
Yes.
And she found some time for all of us.
Yes.
So with that, let's start with Red Lipstick Conversations. What is that all about?
So, of course, you know that everyone from the pandemic, everyone then created their own platforms of podcasts, TV shows, social media, of course, went crazy with all these influencers. But I noticed that people are not having real, authentic conversations. And so with red lipstick conversations, when you think of someone, when you think of a woman that wears red lipstick, she's bold, she's confident. You never see anyone that has low self-esteem wearing red lipstick at all. And so I was like, oh, I think that this is catchy. And so that's how red lipstick conversations came about, because I talked to a lot of people being in different, avenues, real estate, corporate, being a mom, being a wife. You get into all these different conversations with different people. And I was like, wait a minute, I think I need to hit the record button and let people have some insight on these real conversations that I had with people. And so that's how red lipstick conversations came about.
So now, do you only talk to other females? I mean, or
No.
males? Oh,
And that
okay.
was a twist too. So the first person that was actually my guest on my show was actually a male. And so it's all different people from all walks of life, whether that's business, whether it's corporate, motherhood, relationships, spirituality. Like we talk about literally everything that needs to be talked about. No
Okay.
fluff.
Okay.
It's
Got
authentic.
it.
I don't even interview them prior to either. I let the conversation be unscripted. So I find out a lot by just having
Got it.
that unscripted conversation. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I was checking my email. I didn't see my invitation to Red Lipstick
Oh, you're
Conversation.
next.
Maybe. Oh, I'm
Trust.
next. Oh, okay. Oh,
Yes.
okay. Got it. Got it. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So
Yes.
invitation's in the mail. Got it.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. All right. All
In your
right. All
email.
right.
It's probably in
It's,
spam,
it's in
actually.
maybe that's what it is. It's
Yeah.
probably in spam. I didn't
Yeah.
recognize the domain. I was like, I
No,
don't know
you
what that
didn't.
is.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
Got it. Got it. Got it. Got it. Okay. So tell us about Own It, Own You. What is that?
So I am a certified life coach, which
Oh,
that
the CLC. That is there.
yeah.
CLC. Okay. All right.
Yes.
All right.
So I'm a certified life coach. And Own It, Own You came about from my life story. I did, as I was on my self awareness journey and self discovery, I discovered that the minute that I take ownership of whatever was keeping me boggled down, I take ownership of my life. And so that's how own whatever it is, whatever you're going through. And that's when you'll take ownership of you. So For example, like your jam is finances. The minute you take ownership of finances, you're struggling with it, acknowledge whatever it is, that's when you'll have full ownership of yourself, live a happy life. And so that's what Own It Own You is. I am an advocate for women, and I help them own their lives, their style, and their assets. So it's basically everything I do in one.
Mm. I can agree with that 100%. Earlier, we were talking about taxes. A lot of the stuff I was sharing about, how they come and just take money out of your bank account. I
Mhm.
know because I experienced it.
Right.
This may be the first time I'm saying this on the podcast. Oh, all the first today. Um, and I'll do a whole episode on this at a later time so everyone can know the whole story. But I want my listeners to know there was a time where I owed the IRS $160,000
Ooh,
and did
wow.
not have the money to pay them.
Wow.
I
Wow.
had had a lien against my house. I had wage garnishment. Everything was happening. And guess what the big mistake was that I made? I didn't communicate.
Yeah.
I didn't communicate. And when I finally decided to own it, not run from it anymore, and start communicating, they put together a plan and I started paying it off. And actually, it will be completely paid off here in about 5 payments.
Look at that.
That's 10 years of negotiating with the IRS and dealing with. And it all came from, I'd say, I made three big mistakes in a matter of about 18 months. And like I said, I'll share that story another time. But once I owned it, oh man, the weight taken off my shoulders.
Yes.
Just know that I had a payment plan. Oh, I got a payment
Yes.
plan. We're good.
Yep.
I
And
no longer got that pit in my stomach when a letter showed up from the IRS because I knew it
yep.
was just a letter saying we got your payment. Cool. I even stopped opening them at that point. I was like, oh, did the payment go through? It did. All right. Well, there's nothing else to say.
Yeah.
Okay. But owning it was one of the biggest things that I had to do so that I could release that stress and that worry about what if and all this other stuff. But yeah, because it was until I owned it, it was owning
I mean,
me.
you correct. And so I feel like it that is the key to everything, no matter how you look at it, whether it's business, entrepreneurship, struggling in your marriage, whatever, your children, like own it. Own whatever that is, and it will not eat you alive, because a lot of people are living miserable lives because they don't want to own whatever that trigger is. So
Mm, indeed. So tell us about your journey as a life coach. I mean, what does that what did it look like to become certified? How do you engage with clients now? Do you do workshops? Is it one-on-one? Is it teams? What do you tell us about that?
So I got into life coaching because I needed a life coach. I needed a life coach. I did not know life coaching actually existed. I did not realize that there's a difference between a life coach and a therapist. And so for a long time, I was going to therapy, and after a while, I was like, I don't need therapy. You're not helping me. It's something missing. And so I am a person that loves doing research, always trying to figure out different things. And I stumbled upon a life coach. And I was like, well, what is that? And a life coach just helps you coach your life. A therapist actually gets to the emotional part of you. But if I'm healed emotionally, I need somebody else on my growth, on my growing journey. And so the more that I have conversations with my friends, my family, everyone comes to me for advice, with their life, their style, their assets. And so I was like, wait a minute, I should be getting paid for this. Like, my time is valuable with me being a mother of four and a wife, and I have a dog. Yes, we're going to add that dog in there because that's work too. Um, I was like, I should be getting paid for the things that I'm just passionate about doing. I'm passionate about
Oh,
helping
hold on, we
people.
got to
And
back up. Hold on, no, we got to back up because I left out the 4 kids. I said mother. I left out the 4 kids. And give us those ages real quick.
yeah, so they are 19, 15, 11, and 3.
Man, and she found time for us. Okay. That's
Yeah.
what we call prioritizing what you got to do. Now, y'all also didn't see her pushing them out of the frame right before we got started, but that's another
Right.
story.
Before I was like, wait a minute, I'm getting on here. You got to be quiet. Yes.
Okay. So
Yes.
back to life coaching as a
Yeah.
parent of
So
4.
Yeah. So I was like, this is something that I do on a normal basis, and I actually enjoy doing it. And so I was like, I didn't know that this was something that was in my life plan. But the more that I stayed true to who Natasha was, I was like, oh, this aligns with what I do. And so it was just an easy decision to do.
Okay. So tell us about
And
your
I
the
actually
business.
went
Yeah.
to
How do you?
school.
Okay.
Yeah, so
But
as far as the business goes, I just normally I don't really do much promoting, and I know that that's bad because I should. But the people that I help normally just it's just uh it's just divine. It's just connection with me networking, and I'd be like, oh yeah, by the way, I'm a life coach, and they'd be like, oh okay, well I'm gonna hit you up, and so that's how that works. My goal is to take this into the corporate realm of things though, because I noticed that you have a whole bunch of people living their corporate lives, these executives, but they're not owning anything. So who are you when you clock out at 5 o'clock? And I am very intuitive. And so um my intuition guides me a lot of the times. And so I can be at work and I can just be like, something's off. Like you're great with what you do, in this corporate realm, but something's off and you may need a me. And so I'm just trying to
mhm,
figure out how to collide everything together.
got it.
Yeah.
Yeah. No. It's the interesting thing about the idea of um, life coaching and just coaching in general is that
Hmm.
in the upper echelons of the executive world, so your C-suite employees, they've been
Hmm.
getting life coaches and executive leadership coaches for a long time.
Right. Yeah.
It's just recently it's become more accessible to more individuals through programs like certified life coaching program, where you don't
Hmm.
have to be the CEO or the CFO or the COO of this big firm to have access to the knowledge, to have access to the resources to help you in bringing some alignment into your life.
Hmm.
When I was working in the corporate America, I had the pleasure of working with several different executive leadership coaching. Now, of course, when your corporation is paying for that coach for you, most of the
Yeah.
strategies and ideas are how you can become a better how
For
you can become
that.
a better person, yes, but a better
Yeah.
person for that role, or even finding
Yeah.
a better role inside the organization. But there is
Hmm.
a lot of self work that you have to do to get through that. But when you find a life coach that's not being paid for by your corporation, they can look a lot more holistically at what you're doing. And that's what I love about working with life coaches, because I've worked with several as I transition into independence.
Hmm.
But as an independent business owner, that life coach was working with me and with Alicia, because we've done it together. But they're working with us not just for our business, but just for us as individuals. Because a lot of it just started with like,
Yeah.
what's important to you? What are your values? And if money wasn't an object, what would you be doing? And then of
Yeah.
course they just kind of feed that right back to you a little bit
Yeah.
later. And it's like, oh, I need to be doing more of what I love. And that's actually how this podcast started. Challenge from one of my coaches. It's like, if you
Cool.
could do anything, what would it be? Like, I'd want to give financial literacy to everyone. It's like, well, how can you do that? I'm like, I don't know. I can teach it in the schools, but there's so much red tape, etc. And it's like, you could start a podcast. I was like, yeah, I guess I could start a podcast. Took me 2 years, but here's the podcast. See that? It
Yeah.
all came from somebody saying,
Yeah.
hey, this is a way that you can provide, because that's the beauty about a podcast. There's no boundaries. We have
None.
listeners on every continent.
Yes.
Well, unless you want to call Antarctica a continent. We have listeners in every continent where there's lots of people.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't, I guess English is, a worldwide language, because we're not translated into other languages yet. But that's the beauty of this platform and the reach that we can have. And now with Natasha, you being on the show, you get that same reach. So who knows? Somebody might be looking at some coaching from Australia. We'll see.
That would be cool. That would be
It
cool.
would
Like
be.
I said, I'm never a guest. I'm always the one hosting and facilitating everything. So this is a great opportunity to be on the other side of the seat. So
Indeed, indeed. So talk to us again, going back to the coaching. can you tell us like what a relationship looks like with you as a coach? I mean, what are some of the questions that you ask? What does that onboarding process look like?
So, with me, I like to take the down to earth approach. Like you said, in leadership or when you're in corporate, they give you these tools to make you better. They give you these tools. They always ask you, what is it, quarterly? We get quarterly check ins, like where do you want to go? Where do you see yourself in 90 days? What has worked? What has not worked? But like, again, with me being authentic and love getting to the core, that is my job as a coach. So I want to get to your core by just being like your homegirl. Have that. I want you to be relaxed. I don't want you to feel uptight. I want you to feel like, hey, I'm really here. I care and value what you're saying. I care and value why you feel the way that you do. Everyone's feelings is valid, right? And so I just feel with me taking that approach, it makes it a lot easier for people to talk to me. Like people tell me the most outrageous things, and I'd be like, okay, like you
Yeah, I
trusted me
just
with
told you I
that.
used to have $160,000 in IRS debt. No
Yeah,
guest has got that out of me, and I've had CPAs on the show too. But I don't know how. You just, I mean,
yeah,
like you said, it was that homegirl cuzzo. Like, I can tell my
yeah,
cousin about this. No big deal. But
yeah,
I
and
also there's a pride of how far I've come, so it's a little bit easier to talk about
right.
with what you brought up. So, but
Right.
yeah,
And
okay,
so with me taking that approach, I'm always authentic in my truth. I'm not
got
ever going to sit and be like, oh, yeah, I went to school and I got a degree in this and this is how I made it. Literally, I've literally got it out the mud. Everything that I have done, no one has walked and held my hand, and so I want to always be authentic. And so when I coach and have these conversations with my clients, I always have a relatable story. It may not be similar, but I like to show you empathy to say, I feel your pain because, or your feelings are valid because, And so I just find it easier for people to connect with me because I am relatable. As far as like just going back to the TED talk, like I really like how you said that you enjoyed it because of course I'm hard on myself. But after that, I had a couple of people come to me and was like, look, I don't even have any kids at all. I wasn't a teen mom, but you're so relatable and I don't know how. That is my job. That is my job, is to say, this is who I was and these are the steps that I've taken to become who I am today. And so that's just how I take that approach.
beautiful. Well, speaking of who you were, on the Money Script podcast, we
Mhm.
like to get to the ground level, as you said earlier, in helping people understand their money script. And the money script is the ideas that you have and stories that you have around money that has shaped your relationship with money over time. So, a question that
Amen.
we ask to all of our guests is if you will share with us, to the best of your ability, what is your first memory of money?
That I was broke. My first memory is that we were broke. We didn't have much. Um, Growing up, people thought that because my dad was a pastor, that pastors' kids got money. My dad drove a Cadillac, so they thought that we lived this lavish life, and we didn't. We were broke.
Hmm.
And so we didn't have conversations about money. My dad did not show me, like how to write a check, back in the day when checks were being written. And these are things that I eventually had to learn because I became a teen mom early. And so because I wanted to change the trajectory of how I grew up, I forced myself to learn these things so that I could teach Trey, being that he was the first kid that I had, being a mom at 17, to teach him these things. And so I was broke. And so I knew that I didn't want to be broke. So I knew that I had to consistently grow and change my mindset. And what didn't I like when I was a kid? Okay, why didn't I like it? Why did it make me feel this way? And so I owned whatever that thing was. I owned that I didn't like that. I owned that we were broke and I fixed it, and I'm fixing it still to this day. And so that was my first mindset of money, that we were broke.
We were in the same boat, so I couldn't really tell. But your
Yeah.
dad did have a nice Cadillac. That's another story, though. Indeed, indeed. Well, Natasha, we want to thank you for spending some time on the Money Script podcast and sharing a bit of your story and your business with us. I am really excited about turning these tables and being able to sit with you on
Yeah,
the red lipstick conversations. Do
absolutely.
you ever do? I guess I could invite Alicia to that too. She'll put on some red lipstick. We could do it
Yeah,
together.
yeah.
Yeah, we have some fun with that. We have some fun with that.
It'll be a whole vibe.
Now, if we have anyone in the Texas, or where are you licensed for real estate?
Texas. Yeah, I'm only
Texas.
licensed
Okay.
in
So,
Texas.
so
Yep.
if we have anyone that's interested in listing or selling or buying a home, how can those individuals find you?
So you can find me on Instagram. It is Natasha Aramis, Aramis, real estate, on Instagram. And that's where they can find me. And even if they're not looking in Texas, I do have referral partners that are in different cities and different states, that can assist them too. So
Okay. Awesome. And for those that want to learn more about your coaching, I believe you have a website for that as well.
yes, I do. So that's www.ownitownyu.com.
Got it. And we will make sure we put those links into the show notes, and we'll also have her TED talk in there as well.
Yes.
And so I got to ask you for one more favor, and I'm going to do it on the air so I can hold you to it. I
Okay.
want to do a TED talk. How do I do
Okay.
it?
Actually, this is a funny story. This was something that was on my vision board, and someone found me on Instagram and
I
invited
don't have
me
it on my
to the
vision board.
TED.
So that's what I have to do. I have to put it on my, I was looking, so I have my vision board up here. I was looking to see if I
Okay.
put TED on my vision board. I don't see TED. That's the mistake I made. Okay. So all I have to do is put TED on my vision board,
Manifest
and
it.
someone will reach out to me on Instagram. Got it.
That's how it happened for me.
Easy enough. All right.
Yeah.
I'm gonna put I'm gonna print the words TED. I'm gonna make sure I print the logo so it's so I can really
Yes.
visualize it.
Yes.
And I'm gonna put it on that vision board today.
But I'll reach out to the girl and ask her if she knows anybody, and then I'll give her
See,
your
look at
name.
that. See, it's already happened, already manifesting. That's beautiful.
Thank
Well, again, thank you for joining us on the Money Script podcast. To all of
you.
our listeners out there, like I said last week, we are almost to episode 100. This is probably 92-ish. It has to be because I said 91 last time. So this is episode 92. 92 was full of firsts. I had first time cousin on the show, first time TED talker on the show. First time me revealing a little bit about my past on the show as well, which was a little bit of a vulnerable moment. But we definitely appreciate all of you for continuing to tell a friend, to tell a friend, to tell a friend, to just take a moment out of your week and focus on your finances. Learn something new, get a more global perspective. Don't be in the 688 billion or whatever I said of people that didn't pay their taxes in 2021. And as a matter of fact, tax day, when you're listening to this, tax day just passed because it's coming up on Monday. But it's always coming. Okay. April 15th, October 15th, September 15th, some of you with businesses, it's always coming. Okay. If you need some help, I've put plenty of resources of people that are in the tax world that can help you. And of course, you can, do a search in your local area, use LinkedIn, what have you, but find some help. Don't be one of those individuals like I was, because it only leads to more heartache, pain, and money. Like money leaving, not coming in, money leaving you. You don't want to do that. You don't want to do that. So we will be back next week. Oh, I promised in the last episode I would tell you all who's coming, and I forgot to look it up. So hold on, I got my calendar right here. So we have coming up on the podcast, we got John Thomas. John Thomas is yet another bodybuilding vegan. He's got vegan, no meat, and he's swole. He's a big dude. So we have him coming up. We have who else? Engineer, you can cut out my thinking here. Oh, we have Harrison Hill coming up. He is a photographer for the New York Times. Excited to meet with him. We have, for those of you, I get lots of compliments on my website, like, oh, who made your website? Well, guess what? I have Pat Bentley from Tech Peer Consulting. They're the guys who made the website. So we're going to interview him and learn what his business is doing and learn about some of the interesting things that are changing in the websites and social media world. I've got John and Kathy Stringer from Healing Arts Management. Really excited to speak with them as well. I think they did TED also, but then they'll have to be the second. See how that works?
Yeah.
And then we have, I think, one more in here. I think there's one or two more. I don't see them in there right. We have a couple more in there, and then that's all leading up to episode 100 on January the 1st. And no, I'm not going to tell you who the guest is, but if you already found out who it is, then keep it to yourself. With that, we will see you the next time on the Money Script Podcast. Feel free to please, heart it, like it, share it, leave a comment, all that great stuff, because that just helps spread the word. And everyone, do yourself a favor and make better money decisions for yourself starting now. Talk to you next time.